Hey guys, welcome to the ride. My name is Gage, and I am here to answer, that very important question: should you play Dungeons and Dragons? Um, if you clicked on this video, it's probably because maybe a friend invited you to play, or you saw this, little indie game at like a Barnes and Noble or something, and you were just curious what it was. This whole conversation has been touched on many times. I don't plan on adding anything new. This is just my opinion on whether or not the game would be right for you. Just some context. I've been a DM for 7 years, give or take. If you're new to Dungeons and Dragons, a DM stands for Dungeon Master, which is essentially a referee of the game. Someone who creates a world or uses a world from one of the books and gives it to the players and lets them run around and do crazy things. Now, is this game right for you? I'm not going to try and rate Dungeons and Dragons. I'm not gonna give it like an 8 out of 10 or a 5 out of 10 or anything like that. Instead, I'm just going to share with you some of the good, some of the bad, and hopefully at the end of this you can kind of make your own decision as to whether or not you think this game is your cup of tea. Okay, so starting off with the good, there is a lot of good to say about D&D. I don't even really know where to start, so I'm just going to kind of word vomit and hopefully you can kind of glean something out of that. But one of the good things about D&D is, first off, it is one of the oldest, if not, it pretty much is the oldest modern RPG on the market. It's been around forever. I think it was 1970 something when it first came out. But because of that, they've had a lot of time to really refine their play style. D&D's gone through quite a few editions over the years. The current edition, the one that you see at Barnes and Nobles and at game stores, and the ones your friends are probably playing, is Dnd Fifth Edition, and you'll probably hear terms like Dnd 5e or Dnd 5, and that just refers to the Dnd Fifth Edition that is currently on the market. I really like this edition of D&D. I think it adds a ton. I actually started off playing 3rd edition back in the day. Well, I shouldn't say back in the day. I got a hold of a 3rd edition book when 5th edition was still out, and I just never knew which book was which and played 3rd edition accidentally for a little while. However, 5th edition is a really well done RPG. Another good thing about D&D is that it is one of the easiest RPGs to get into, in my opinion. And some people might not agree with me on this. I know there are other RPGs out there. I have quite a few of them. But what I've found is that D&D's system is fairly simple to understand. And not only that, but the actual themes that D&D has are very simple to understand. The classical idea of, a wizard, a warrior, and a rogue all team up and go and slay a dragon. That was D&D. They did it first, and they've kind of sort of had the market on that. Another good thing about D&D is the fact that it's a game where you can't lose. And what do I mean by that? Well, it's a game where collaborative storytelling is the fun. When you play D&D, you have a group of players and a DM, and you work with these people in your group to tell an epic tale of sorts. You go through different dungeons and you fight monsters and you get experience and loot, and that's all great. But the cool thing is that nobody is losing at D&D if everyone's having fun. If you look at board games like chess or Monopoly, especially, I hate Monopoly. We'll use that as the example here. In Monopoly, the whole goal is to move around the board until one player controls the entire board. And if you played Monopoly before, chances are you played it and thought, this is not fun at all. And you're not the only one who thinks that. The fact that it's a game where you only win when everybody else doesn't want to play because you own everything. It just shows you that that's not the best game design in the world. If we look at a game like chess, two players battling it out, there's always going to be a loser in those games. But in RPGs, in D&D and in RPGs in general, there's no losers. The DM sort of acts as the bad guy, you could say, putting the bad guys in the player's path and having the players take them out. However, the DM's job is to make sure the players are having fun. And if they're having fun, then everyone wins. The DM wins from seeing the players have fun, and the players win from having fun. Yeah, I think we do now. A towel dab? I'll take a towel dab, sure. Oh, yes. Oh, thank you. Yes, absolutely. That feels great. Now, I could ramble on about the good that there is in D&D. However, I don't want to just be on the bandwagon of saying D&D is amazing. There are a lot of things that are flawed in the D&D system. And I'll share a few of those now, and you can kind of gauge for yourself whether or not those are deal breakers for you. First off, if you are not a fan of rolling dice, well then I hate to break it to you, most RPGs are that. There's a lot of dice rolling, a lot of numbers involved in D&D. This kind of bleeds into my next, not critique, just something to be aware of, which is that D&D is a numbers game. There's a lot of addition, a lot of subtraction, and a lot of figuring out basic maths to find out if your sword has smacked the goblin. Now, there's not as much as there are in other RPGs, which are more complicated and more tactical, but there's definitely a decent amount of math involved. If you're an experienced player watching this, you might be thinking, D&D's pretty simple, and you are right. However, there are times when I help new players onboard that I realize there's a lot of math going into this that some people really haven't used since high school, and I've never had to. That said, another thing to be aware of in D&D is that it is a more involved game. If you want to have fun in it, there are a few different options. There are what are called one-shots, which, if you're watching this video and you're brand new, maybe somebody invited you to a one-shot or a campaign. And those terms just refer to, well, a one-shot being one game session. You go over to your friend's house, you play with the group for one session, and then that story is done, and you're done with that story for the rest of time, unless you guys choose to make a campaign out of it. Which leads me to the idea of a campaign, which is multiple stories strung together over multiple game sessions. It's a very involved game, especially if you want that fun and that kind of emotional attachment to your character. You need to play with them for a couple sessions to really get that really awesome investment. But that said, it is an investment. And if you aren't the kind of person who wants to play, even a 1-month campaign, then maybe a different game might be better. Possibly board games like Hero Quest or something. And finally, just one more thing to be aware of if you are getting into D&D is that of some of the complexities around the systems, mainly spellcasting. And this might be a little bit more complicated, but just to kind of clarify, in D&D there are many classes that use magic. You can make a character who has magic abilities. And that's all well and good, but the magic system and the reason a lot of players want to get involved with D&D is for those magic systems. That magic system is a little bit more complex. Again, there are many other RPGs that are far more complex than D&D and have a lot more nuance to the spells you choose. But the D&D spell system is... D&D spell system can be a little bit clunky at times, especially if you don't really know much about D&D to begin with. I recommend if you're going to play a spellcasting class and you're new to RPGs in general, definitely work with your DM to figure out those rules because it can get pretty complicated. And being a DM to a lot of new players a lot of different times, I have seen players who almost forget they have spells and don't really know what to do with their character as a whole. again, these are just things to be aware of. There are plenty of other systems that are more complicated than D&D, and there's a lot that are more simple. And really, the thing you need to ask yourself is, where do you fall in that category? Personally, I love D&D. I love the options that it gives for classes, for races, for backgrounds, for different things to make your character unique. I also think the setting, the high fantasy setting, while a lot of people may find it cliche, I think it's cliche for a reason. I think it's very easy to like, and I think that is a strength of Dungeons and Dragons. I think that's one of the reasons why they've been around for so long, is because people want to be wizards, and people want to be knights, and people want to fight dragons, go to taverns, and save the city. If you feel that this is something that you would enjoy, then feel free to talk to a local game store about getting started, and hopefully you have a good time with your game. Thank you guys so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Let me know if you'd like to see more videos in the future. I'm thinking about possibly doing some videos on player tips, DM tips, and little things that I've kind of seen in my time that might be some things I wish I'd known when I first began Dungeons & Dragons. Thank you so much for coming to the ride. My name is Gage, and I will see you in the next video.